So today we're going to be talking about stage blue. Stage blue is the stage that comes after stage red. Stage blue is the fourth stage and communally oriented. Stage blue is created when, well, basically people just get tired of stage red. They they just red makes enemies out of everyone. People realize that they need laws. People realize they want to believe in something. Oftentimes, this happens when one of the reddish warlords, empire leader, uh, decides that they actually want to put something stronger in place of what they have built, and so they sometimes will actually create laws. This is what happened with Genghis Khan, for example. Um, I think Khan actually did intend to put. I think he actually meant to have laws um, initially because he was like trying to unify Mongolia, trying to unify all the small tribes. But he, used a lot of red tactics to get that far just because he had to. Made an empire. And but then once the empire was established, that was the moment when he put in laws. For example, no one betrays their Khan, their tribe leader. Let's see. Oh, there were a few others, but I forget it. Um, but it was all unity oriented. They all had to believe in the god Tengri, and that was sort of why Khan was traveling across the world, trying to assimilate different places. Was he wanted to install his own god in various forms. Um, anyway, one of the technologies that seems to catalyze blue is actually writing, and that's just because writing is something that is very concrete. It's right in front of you. You can see it, especially words that are graven into things like stone, for example. The tablets with Moses are a very bluish sort of construction. They're a set of laws that are in something that everyone can see, and they're set solidly in something. So no one in stage red can go. Well, I think the laws should actually be this. No, so people in blue can point at the tablets and say, no, the commandments, they are this exactly. They're not there. There's no middle ground. There's no sort of. It's all this. There, can't you can't try to take advantage of. You can't be wishy-washy and try to make loopholes out of something. Well, actually, you can, but you can kind of see what I'm saying, that the benefits of writing really helped along laws because it was something that was very concrete. So the essence of stage blue, as you probably gathered by this point, it's focused on law and order. It's focused on a belief in society, societal roles. Once a red empire becomes large enough, it's not enough to just have absolute authority to one guy. There needs to be more going on than that in order for the society to actually move beyond that point. And for that, you need concrete laws, you need societal roles, so that there's various different people, various different families that all have different functions. You need a code of ethics so that people remain unified. Religion, for example, is basically, I mean, there's people who'd be very angry with me for saying this, but it's true nonetheless, that religion, in terms of just evolution, is actually a survival tactic, and it's a survival tactic in the sense that if you have some very powerful thing that everyone believes in, everyone has faith in, then that religion is something that will keep people unified. They'll be far less likely to try to betray the society, go down into crime. I shouldn't do this because God has said He doesn't want me to do this. You know, I am this particular religion. I couldn't possibly even think of betraying it. I would go to hell. I would betray all these other people by even having thoughts of going against the laws of the society. That's actually the power of religion. It's a survival tactic. It's evolution. And there's a few other things regarding blue in general. For example, societal roles, man woman marriages within families. That's another one. The belief that you should have as many babies as you possibly can. All religions have something of you should be fruitful. You should have as many babies as you possibly can, and that of course is another survival tactic. And it's survival because the religions are trying to outbreed each other, and those religions that survive are the religions that are going to have the most people in them. So you got to have babies. Got to have babies, man. You know, that's what it's all about. Religion is just evolutionary survival done in a way that people aren't really aware what it is, and it's. I'm sure that once enough people see this episode, there's going to be people who really don't like me for saying this about religion, but it's I got to be truthful because that is what religion is. And to be clear here, like I'm not saying religion is all fake. I mean, it's religion. There. I mean, of course, there's a lot of nonsense in religion, especially among conservatives. But there definitely are supernatural things in the world. There are things that are beyond the physical that actually do exist. I don't think that religion itself is something you can rely on to actually explore these things, just because the way that religion is set up tends to generally be extremely conformist, oftentimes corrupt in the upper rungs. Um, and for that reason, it's not a very good thing, a good vehicle for actually trying to explore the supernatural things that are actually out there. But even still, like all religions do have a certain grain of truth here and there. The beliefs themselves aren't all bullshit. Instead, what I'm saying is that, religions, um, for the most part, they are founded on low consciousness nonsense. There might be a few diamonds in the rough here and there, but mostly it's low consciousness nonsense, and that low consciousness nonsense serves the role of enforcing society, keeping society going. So the basic structure for Stage Blue is there's a person who's seen sort of like the absolute authority figure. Um, it's sort of like in Red, but the difference with Blue is that people regard this person as being a saint. He's someone who made great sacrifices, someone who was inherently good in some ways, someone that people want to emulate. Jesus is a very good example uh, Christianity, Mohammed for Islam. That's another example. People who are absolute authority figures, and laws are based around people's interpretation of these people, and those laws are used to enforce society. Of course, there's all manner of corruption that goes into those laws and misinterpretations of things because um, I strongly suspect, for example, that Jesus himself was actually in turquoise. He was not in blue. He was either turquoise or something actually higher. But the people who followed Jesus were down in stage blue, and because of that, they interpreted him in a stage blue kind of way. And what I mean by that is instead of, having instead of trying to um, instead of looking at his actual teachings trying to find oneness with any of the things that he said. What people did instead, back in those days, because it was blue centered, was they came up with just very, very strange interpretations. They conflated their own uh, solidified misconceptions from the way things had been going before Jesus into the laws themselves, and because of that, you had this belief in marriage and um, and no same sex, and what women are given roles, and so on and so forth. People believe this, and they believe that it's in the name of Jesus, when Jesus actually really didn't. He didn't give a shit. He would never have cared. But the people who follow him even today, they really believe that he cared, just because the people 2,000 years ago who are still following him, uh, they were too low consciousness to really understand what Jesus himself was about, and so the laws that those people made and carried down with them, uh, they're just misinterpretations, and that's why religion seems as bizarre as it is today in this country, is because now that society has evolved in the modern day, people are finally starting to realize just how ridiculous stage blue religion actually looks. So the structure of society, as I mentioned earlier, it's there's an authority figure on the very top. In addition to the authority figure, below that, it's often a kingdom. Kingdoms, fiefdoms, or something that's fairly common with blue, just because they have absolute authority, absolute rule of law. If you break the law, you're a bad person. Um, it's all yes, no, no middle ground. You're either with the culture or you're against the culture. Are you a Christian? Yes or no? I mean, of course, there's many different flavors of Christianity, but conservatives do not see it that way. Are you Christian? Yes or no? If there's even a little bit of liberal in you, you're not Christian and you're a bad person. You'll go to hell. That's sort of the way they think. And within a blue society, everyone is assigned a role based on who their family was. So the blacksmith is going to be a blacksmith because his father was a blacksmith and his father before him, and so on and so forth. There's no upward mobility in stage blue. It's all a fixed, rigid hierarchy. The king is the king because his family was royalty before him, and that's all that needs to be said for why he should be king. It's like in to do Game of Thrones, Westeros generally is a good example of stage blue. Of course, there's a lot of red going on in that story as well. But the way that things are set up, at least before the War of Five Kings, where there's families, and what someone's role is depends entirely on their family. The shoemaker does shoes because his father was a shoemaker. And it, if you're born poor, then you're going to die poor, and if you're born rich, then with a bit of luck, you will die rich. That's basically how it is. So now we're moving on to the aspects of stage blue. So the first aspect for stage blue is faith. Everything is done with belief. I believe in this code of ethics. I believe in this particular religion. It's all about if you believe, then that means God will like you and you're a good person, and the strength of your belief is going to change what happens to you. It's going to change the unfolding of your life. And belief is thought to be the vehicle for truth in Stage Blue. It's actually not, unfortunately, but that's what they strongly believe. And this is one way that they get people not to question anything, is just everything is about belief. Do you believe in this one? Yes. And um, I believe strongly. Not me, but I'm just giving an example. I believe that Jesus is the Savior, and I believe that I was sent to this particular area on a mission from God so I could spread the gospel. I believe in these laws, and that's what makes them right. Because my religion believes it too, and um, as long all you have to do is just believe in Jesus, and you will be saved and you will go to heaven. It doesn't matter if you do good works or not. All you have to do is believe. Well, actually, to be fair, there are some religions that actually do regard good works. Catholics, for example, are very big on doing good works, whereas evangelicals are less concerned with it. And for evangelicals, it's all about belief. There can be different variations within the Stage Blue plane, um, but all of them are very belief oriented. So the next facet is stability. Stability, basically meaning, it's like a rock. It's something you can rely on. It's stable. It doesn't change. It will always be there. It's an unshakable set of beliefs. People gain a lot of peace just by having unshakable beliefs that never change, that they'll never disagree with. This is what gives people. It helps people to reduce anxiety. I would use it, except that unfortunately I happen to be too conscious for that to work on me. But in earlier uh, periods of my life when I was like 10, it actually did help when I was still unconscious enough to actually believe in things like religion. Anyway, moving on to the next one, nationalism. Stage Blue is still small scale compared to the modern world. Stage Blue, it only looks at its own culture, and it only wants to help its own culture. So it's all um, it's all about what race you are, because it feeds into what family you have. um, and uh, it's try one thing about Stage Blue is, like, if people happen to be different races, then they'll try to find different societal roles based on the race that someone is. This, of course, is a carryover from Stage Red, which was just direct slavery and conquering. But in Stage Blue, it's more about, no, you're still a slave, but you have to be a slave because now we have these laws and we have this religion, and these say that you have to be the slave and you'll go to hell if you're not a slave. Um, so that's another aspect of nationalism, and it's also just, our culture is right, the other culture is wrong. We have a manifest destiny. We're destined to take over the world because we're simply the God is on our side. And this is unfortunately the methodology that was used when settlers colonized the North Americas, or actually not just the North Americas, but the Americas in general. Just decimated the Native Americans because uh, the white settlers believed they had a manifest destiny. They thought they were somehow destined to take over the Americas so they could put themselves in place, and they never gave one single thought to what they were doing to the Native Americans. Um, I've talked about that a bit in previous episodes. Um, so it's ethnocentrism. It's our culture is the right one. and all other cultures are just wrong. They oftentimes don't even come up with reasons for why the others are wrong. It's just the others are just wrong. God just doesn't like the other cultures. You see conservatives talk this way all the time, even today. It's kind of disturbing. Anyway, the next aspect is honor. So honor, um, like especially in the upper echelons of a blue culture, there's a very honor-based sense. It's uh, if someone is insanely rich in a blue culture, then they can't really make people like them by having sacrificed or having suffered directly, because it's just not it's not something that someone happens to do if they're in an upper family, because the idea of the self-made man is not something that occurs until orange, which is the one that comes after blue. So blue hasn't made it that far yet. So the way that upper echelons in stage blue will tend to get people to like them is they will have a code of honor. Um, so you know, if someone insults a higher person in a blue culture, then in order to defend their honor and repair the insult, they will oftentimes fight a duel with the person who insulted them. Often this was to the death. Although it wasn't always the case, but commonly it was to the death. In Southern culture, there's still certain traces of that. Um, Yeah, I think the reason why at least one of the Kennedys was assassinated was because they were too progressive for some blue people, and some blue people decided that their honor had been insulted, and they decided to just assassinate. I think it was Robert Kennedy, the brother to John F. Kennedy. um, it honor is just about defending your reputation. So it's a way that the upper echelons of blue will defend their reputation. The next aspect is structure. So structure basically just means everyone in society is given a certain role, usually depending on what family they are from. Everyone has a place in the society as long as they follow the laws. Of course, if they don't follow the laws, then they go homeless. But if they do follow the laws, then there is always some role that's given to them. It could be extremely menial and pointless, but it's still a role. There's a place for everyone, and at the same time, their religion has a just general belief that there's a grand plan. God has a plan for you in the world. And your plan is always, of course, tailored to whatever your societal role is, because it's just the way that Stage Blue thinks. Um, the next facet is absolutism or literalism. And basically that just means everything is taken literally with the laws. There's no abstract interpretations of the way that laws are conducted. Abstraction isn't something that happens until stage orange, which is the one that follows this. Down in stage blue, it's always what the most direct interpretation is, and this is one of the reasons for why there's so much nonsense in religion in the first place, is because um, stage blue is too unconscious to be able to read between the lines. Stage blue can't think in deep metaphysical epistemological terms. Those are not things that mean a whole lot to stage blue. It's always, this is what the book says. What should I do? How should I conduct myself? I must consult the book. Look at the book. What does the book say? The book says, yes, it says in this particular verse, I must not eat whole wheat bread, or whatever things it tends to say. Like in no shellfish in I think it's like in Leviticus, there's no shellfish, and there's no um no other things. I don't care to remember too many of them, because it's well, I think you get the idea. Don't do this, don't do this, I should do this, I shouldn't do this. There's no, well, if I'm in this situation, maybe I should do this. But on the other hand, if I'm in this other one, I should behave like this because now it's different. No, there's none of that in blue. It's always be like this. If you're not like this, it's wrong. It's a sin and you will go to hell. It's all absolutistic. It's all either or, black and white, concrete thinking. Blue tends to be very concrete. Um, take whatever the most direct interpretation of something happens to be. So the next facet for stage blue is law. So law just means it's a belief in laws as being an absolute, unchangeable thing. What is right is what the laws are. They never entertain the idea that maybe the laws themselves could be wrong or that the laws were installed by people who might be corrupt. Instead, it's just, that this is what the law says. We have to do what the law says. This is what's right. And, if someone falls on hard times or have to go into red for a bit so they can stay alive, stage blue doesn't care. Stage blue's unsympathetic completely. That person broke the law. They have to go to jail, the end. That they have to do their penance. They have to give back their debt to society. It doesn't matter what their motivation is. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, but the law is the law. It's absolute. Um, so the next facet is morality, and of course, morality directly feeds into law and faith. All the aspects that I give for any given stage are they're all related to each other. They're all what I refer to as holons. I'll talk about what a holon is in a future episode, but that it means that all the aspects are all connected with each other. So for morality, it just means a belief that there's good and there's bad, and you want to be on the good side. uh, I'm on the right side of the law. I'm on the right side of God. I'm one of the chosen. I, like Ned Flanders, very, very good example of what I'm talking about. Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, extremely moral person, not terribly conscious. He doesn't question a whole lot of stuff he does, but he's very moral, very concerned with being a good, selfless man, loving to the best of his ability. Of course, if he were more conscious, he could be more loving, but that would be in ways he can't yet understand. Um, so it's all about the want to be the good guy, and oftentimes this gets corrupted in all kinds of insane ways, like with the Crusades, just invading the Holy Land and doing all kinds of terrible things over there, just because, and it's because they were told by a bunch of corrupt people that they were the good guys and they were meant to be doing this. It's morality tends to get corrupted in all manner of nonsense just because blue is still rather low on the continuum, and they're not yet grown up enough to really be able to understand that laws themselves are not inherently good. You can have good laws, you can have bad laws. So the next facet is justice, and justice just means it's reward punishment. If you do a bad thing, then you have to pay for it. You have to suffer for the sin that you've committed. You have to go to jail. And it's the right thing going to jail. This is what people believe in stage blue. That person was sent to jail, and it's because he chose to break the law. They never entertain the idea, well, maybe he was desperate, maybe he fell on hard times. Oh no, that doesn't matter to blue. Blue is just like, no, he chose to break the law. It was his choice. It's all about choices with blue, and trying to guilt trip people with choices. Um, yeah, it was his choice to break the law, so he's a bad person, and now he has to be punished. And there's also like there's the reward aspect to that as well. If someone lives a good life, then they'll be rewarded with money and wealth and fame. Um, And this is oftentimes how a lot of very corrupt conservative preachers will um, make people like them, is they'll take advantage of stage blue and be like, I'm wealthy, that must mean God loves me. And of course evangelicals are too shallow to see beyond this, so they'll eat the whole thing hook, line, and sinker and follow the guy in the millions. And they'll never give a single thought as to uh, the fact that they might possibly be being used. So that's the concept of justice just getting completely taken advantage of. And the final aspect, at least that I can think of at the moment, is family unit. So in stage blue, there is always a sense of a family unit within every family. Everyone in the family is assigned roles. Usually it's the man who has the role of being the money maker, the breadwinner. He goes out in the world, gets a job, earns lots and lots of money for the family, while the wife stays home, takes care of the house, takes care of the children. It's that's basically the family unit in a nutshell. Things can get a little bit more interesting when you can sometimes have multiple generations living in the same home, and this is something that used to happen in full blue culture. There's still a lot of this in a lot of Asia, where multiple generations will live in the same house. And actually I think it's actually a good functional thing for people to be doing that. It's something that unfortunately gets lost with Orange, is the complete breaking of family, not the family unit, because the family unit is something that's kind of uh, not exactly functional. But what I mean instead is the idea of uh, just family itself, just having multiple people in the same house, I think is generally a good thing. I think it's good for people to have the order and structure, having a family of some kind. I don't care so much about the family unit, but just to have people that have access to multiple generations is very important. Is something that I could have used, definitely. But anyway, back on the family unit itself, as it manifests in blue, and as it manifests in blue, it's all gender roles are very big, race roles are also very big. Some families will have slaves in stage blue that are they're seen as part of the family, but of course on the lower rungs. And if people are of African descent in a blue culture, then they'll be the servant, and just do things that are even lower than things the wife might be doing. Actually, if a family happens to be wealthy enough to own slaves, then the wife won't be the one that takes care of the house. The wife will sort of just be like a doll. She'll be just be something that's pampered and taken care of, like much like her own children. Um, if you're not a grown-up male, then you're a child. If you're in a rich blue household, that's sort of how it is. Um, but anyways, that's sort of the family unit in a nutshell. And there's what I was talking about a minute earlier was just there are a few constructive aspects to having a family in the same house, but of course there's a lot of destructive aspects to the family unit that I'm sure a lot of liberals are quite aware of, such as the horribly confining uh, duties that can sometimes arise. So those are the aspects for stage blue. So some examples of blue, generally, I mean, just religions in general: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism. Those are very bluish sorts of religions. Now, Hinduism's a bit more nuanced because it depends on what flavor of Hinduism. Some tend to lean purplish, some tend to lean greenish, but Hinduism generally is still blue, as are the Abrahamic religions. Let's see, the Middle East in general tends to have a lot of stage blue. China has a lot of stage blue, although China is actually secular. It's a secular manifestation of stage blue, but it's still extremely bluish. In China, actually, there's a little bit of purple as well. They sort of mix blue and purple. They have a lot of custom, but in terms of their unfaltering rule of law, that part of them is extremely bluish. Um, Saudi Arabia has a lot of blue. It's a mix of blue and red. Um, Iran is extremely stage blue. Absolute authority by the I forget what he's called, but like the head prophet. They've got like a head prophet over there in Iran that sort of like has absolute authority, a very bluish way of doing things. Let's see the of course there's some blue in Pakistan mixed with red. Let's see. I'm sure there's a lot of things I'm forgetting. I'm kind of kicking myself for like, why am I forgetting this? I slept well. I feel rested, so it's kind of annoying. Um, but yeah, I think you get the idea generally of blue, like just exploring. When you think of different countries you're familiar with in the world, what I've told you about blue should make it fairly easy for the ones to pop up and be like, oh yeah, this one's definitely blue centered. Like China definitely is one of the one of the more prominent examples of, oh yeah, that's blue. Iran, oh yeah, that one's definitely blue. The southern United States also has a lot of stage blue in it. I think that in certain states, like in schools, there's a lot of religious indoctrination. I'm pretty sure that Christianity and the literal interpretation of the Bible is still like in places like um, Kansas. I'm pretty sure it's like presented as being this just as good alternative to evolution. It's not, but that's it's being presented as that in places like Kansas because there's still a lot of bluish stuff going on, and that's why there's such division in our own country right now is because the northern part of the country has moved on from blue, while the southern part of it mostly has not. It's still very bluish, blue orangish. So that's an interesting contrast that seems to be trying to destroy our country right now. Interesting aside. So, what are the constructive and destructive aspects of stage blue? Um, well, the constructive aspects are, for one thing, stage blue is very good at keeping out stage red. Also, stage blue is very good for giving structure and order to a situation. Um, if you want everyone to have a place, if you want people to have a sense of belonging, dependability, stability, then stage blue is a very good thing to have. Stage blue is basically the stage that's used to build a complex society. Um, real cities with many, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people. Those are made possible because of stage blue. All the kingdoms in Europe that arose after the fall of the Roman Empire, those were made possible because of stage blue. And indeed for keeping out all the nastiness of red, you do need laws, and you need to enforce those laws with something, otherwise people take advantage of them. Of course, there are plenty of destructive aspects to stage blue, as I'm sure you've already gathered by listening to this episode. And the destructive ones are just that blue generally it's narrow-minded, it's ethnocentric, it's unconscious, thinks in absolutistic black and white terms. The laws are good, things that aren't the laws are bad. If you're a lawbreaker, you're bad, and they'll never read between the lines. They'll never question, is this the way the laws should be in the first place? They'll never do that, not until they graduate to orange. Um, and another destructive aspect for blue is just that it forces everyone into roles in society based on what gender they are, what race they are, what family they're from. And this is something that hurts people because when you're forced into a role that you're not really made for in the first place, um, it's something that can be psychologically devastating. It's something that can make people very unhappy. It can cheat the society itself of whatever other skills the person might have been able to contribute if they were allowed into a role that they might better have, that they might work better in. But in Blue, there's no searching for what the best role might be. It's just you're in this family, you have this gender, you're in this race. Well, this is your role, and that's at the end, and that's it. Um, for how people graduate to stage orange, uh, well, stage orange is when people actually do start to look at the laws, and they do start to question things. Is our faith actually the one true faith? What if it isn't? And they start looking at the world in an objective manner. They start noticing things about the world. For example, the Earth might not actually be the center of the solar system. Maybe the sun is. Maybe there's other planets out there besides Earth. Maybe we're not stuck in a dome-like firmament, things like this. That's how it starts. Of course, a lot of people get burned at the stake by the Catholic Church. They did get burned at the stake, like Giordano Bruno, for thinking things of this kind because they weren't conforming to the laws. But once there's a critical mass reached, once enough people start to question the laws of blue, that's when the Enlightenment happens. It's when stage orange begins to take root. And stage orange is what will be talked about in the episode that follows this one.